Welcome. So, as witches, we are very much aware of the moon's energy and power that it has in our world, in our universe. But did you know that moon centered worship is actually the single oldest common human event? Some scholars believe this. It goes all the way back 60 to 70,000 years before any other common human event that we know of. Now, over time, the moon has come to represent the expression of the goddess in her triple goddess form, maiden, mother, and crone. And tonight, at the very peak of the moon's energy, we will be talking all about the full moon and the magic that we can make at this heightened power. So, merry meet, I'm Aislin, and this is Ask Aislin. And tonight I am here talking about full moon magic and everything that goes with that. So, if you are here with me live, saying hi to everybody here, so nice to see you guys. And if you would like, you can put comments and questions down in the chat, and I will get to those at the end. And if you like the video, go ahead and put a thumbs up or a heart at any point, just to make sure this gets into the feeds of more people. So we are going to dive into a little bit of history here. So I mentioned that briefly in the introduction, that there are some scholars who actually believe that moon-based spirituality is much older than any other spirituality that we know. Some believe it goes all the way back to 60 to 70,000 years ago, which is actually far longer than any of our solar festivals. Our best knowledge of how far back the solar festivals go, those would be our sabbats, is about 12,000 years. So this is 5 times back, further back in history. Now, unfortunately, with the rise of the patriarchy around 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, moon-based spirituality fell out of fashion across cultures, various cultures in the world. Yet we know that the moon affects us, just given the fact that we're 80% or more water in our composition of our body. If the moon is affecting the tides, why wouldn't it be affecting us as well? Now, we also know that there's connections to women's menstrual cycles and fertility cycles within the lunar cycles, and our energy as well. Now, we're going to, in particular, be talking about the full moon tonight, since that is the phase that we're in. And we are going to look at this particular full moon that's happening tonight. And then I'm also going to give you some themes for other full moons across the wheel of the year, and some ideas at the end of different practices that you could do on a full moon. You can mix and match these and make yourself a little ritual as well. So our full moon that we are currently in is tonight. I'm on the Pacific, in the Pacific time zone. I'm on the West Coast, and this moon is taking place at 9:34 p.m. and this is April 5th. Now, if you live on the East Coast, if you're in the Eastern time zone or anywhere east of that in Europe or anywhere east of there, the full moon is actually taking place on 4/6, April 6th, because on the East Coast, the full moon will peak at 12:34 a.m. later tonight. Now, the thing about full moon energy is that we tend to feel it 2 to 3 days on either side. So you'll feel it as it's amplifying up into the peak, and then you're also going to feel it as we're coming down. It's not a boom, we're in waning moon as soon as the full moon passes its peak. That energy takes some time to dissipate. Now, I personally like to do my magical workings when the energy is on its upward swing towards the full moon. So if I had a preference, I would do a working before that peak if I couldn't do it right around the peak time. But just so you know, if you miss it, you can always catch it on the downswing. So you're going to be feeling this energy for a couple more days, probably into April 7th, even a little into April 8th. And then we start to feel that waning moon energy. Now, at the end, I'm actually going to tell you a little bit about my own ritual. I'm going to be going after this recording, I'm going to be going out to the beach to do my ritual. So I'll share a little bit about that as well. Now, what I want to talk about first, though, is a connection between the new moon and the full moon, besides just simply being two pieces of that lunar cycle. Each full moon is actually part of a 6-month cycle that connects it to the new moon that came before it. So because we are in the sign of Libra, at least the moon is in the sign of Libra right now as it hits its peak power. What that means is it connects to the new moon in Libra that was 6 months ago on the other side of the wheel of the year. Now, that particular date was September 25th, 2022. So it's always very useful every full moon to think back to what was going on, the themes that were going on in your life at the time that the corresponding new moon was taking place. And what you may see is some resolution, some movement, something happening around those themes. So think back to September 25th of last year, see what was going on then, and see if you can make any connections to what's going on now. Now you can do this with any full moon and new moon pair, and I'm just connecting us to the one that goes with the current moon that we're in. Now the other thing is that if you do magical workings at the new moon, so perhaps setting intentions of some kind, sometimes we expect that those intentions will manifest very quickly. Sometimes we'll expect that that will happen 14 days later at the peak of the full moon of that particular cycle. And what that does is it leads people to feel disappointed when they don't see the changes they were expecting from their spell. So what I always tell my students is to not get so wrapped up about the timing. Just really do your spell. If you have something that you're starting at the new moon, let go of that energy after the spell has been done. And then you can check in when you get to that full moon 6 months later. You'd probably expect to see some kind of changes by then. Now, our full moon means that we are at 100% illumination. So I just earlier, right before I got on, was looking at the moon phases calendar that I use, and I actually shared it last week when I did the live last week. I'll drop a link to it in the video tonight as well in case someone wants to go and look at that. It will tell you the illumination at any given point, and it's saying 100% right now. So we're like right at that peak energy. We're going to hit it in just a few hours. Now this is mid-cycle. So that means halfway between the two different new moons, so the start and the end of the cycle. And if we connect this to the solar year that's going on around us, this is like summer. And if we connect it to the daily cycle, this would be like high noon. So you can see each of those spots, there's really big pronounced peak energy. And that's what this moon is all about. Now, for that reason, the full moon is our best bet when it comes to manifestation. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't manifest at other parts of the cycle, but the energy is primed and ready right now for that kind of spell work. So any kind of goals that you hope to manifest, projects that you really want to add amplified energy to, those are really good workings to add your energy to tonight, to kind of ride in with the peak and wave of that energy and catch it there at the top and have it lend the energy to whatever your intention is. Now, I'll give some ideas later, as I mentioned, of things that you can do. But for now, I like to share a little bit about the themes of the different full moons. So each full moon has a different theme that goes along with it. Now, I'll be honest that I don't always follow these themes myself. I'm sharing them. I always share them with my students when I teach my classes to my coven. I always share this information because some people really like to follow the themes. I really like them, and I think you'll enjoy hearing them, and you'll really be able to connect them to the wheel of the year in a larger, in a more general sense. Just know, though, that you're always free to choose a different theme for any full moon. These are just suggestions that are just simply aligned with the energy of that particular moon, at that particular setting in the wheel of the year. Now, these moons are named. I'm going to share several names with you. If you look across different systems, you're going to see a lot of different names. So don't let that get you tripped up. I would just pick the one that you like the best. And also something to note is that there is a regional and a cultural component to some of these names. So for example, some of these will have allusions to winter. And so the ones I'm sharing tonight are actually set for a northern hemisphere practitioner. And if you live further south, like I do, where we don't really get snow, we get up in the mountains. But like if you're in Florida, for example, you're not seeing snow at all, right? And so calling some of these moons the ice moon may not resonate as much for you. So I'll be sharing some other names as well. So the first one that we are going to talk about is just start at the beginning of the year and talk about January. So in our coven, we tend to call this the wolf moon, though there are other names for it like cold or snow, winter or ice. Even in the areas that are closer to the equator, you may still have those seasonal changes. So there may not be snow and ice, but there's coldness. So you can connect this moon in some way to what's going on with you geographically. Now the energy here tends to be a little sluggish. Not all full moons are created equal. So that January full moon has the sluggish energy. So if I really wanted to manifest something and I needed some extra oomph to it, that might not be the one I would choose. So what's happening at the January full moon is that things are percolating under the surface, the energy is building, but it's not really out and present in the world yet. So for this reason, a January moon is very good for more internal work, like turning inward. It's a very good time for protection spells. So doing spells to protect your home, to protect yourself, your family, your property. And it is also a very good time for reversals or for banishing spells. And what's interesting is that may seem a bit strange on a full moon to be doing banishings. We usually think of that as more of a dark moon activity. But if you think about where that moon takes place, it's in the dead of winter. It's in the time when we're at the least amount of energy. So it makes sense that it would have more of a dark moon feel to it. So after that, we begin to move further into the wheel. We move into February, and this moon, at least in our tradition, is called the quickening moon. Now, other people may call this the storm moon, the ice moon. You'll see that some of these overlap. Some people call January the ice moon, the hunger moon, and the snow moon. And it doesn't take a lot to kind of figure out where some of these names would come from. For example, that hunger moon connects to the idea that many of our ancestors who lived in the colder climates did not know when the spring was coming and would be looking at their stores of food and realizing that they were diminishing. This would be a time of fasting. So you could see kind of these connections to where these words are coming from. But the energy here is stronger than it is at the January moon. It's rising towards the surface, but it's still a good time for internal work. It hasn't burst out yet like it will in the spring. And this is also a very good time for purification spells. So February full moon, very great for purification spells. And anything that would purify the mind, the physical body, or just overall purification in general. It's also a really good time to turn your attention towards your health. So spells that are good for healing or for just ensuring good health into the future, very good at the February full moon. It also, what this does is it helps you kind of make sure that you are at your optimum as you begin to move into that next part of the solar year. Now, another thing that's very good at the February full moon is the theme of forgiveness. So that theme is, in general, this is a time when you can let go of some things so that you're able to go into the solar year with better clarity, with unfettering yourself from things that are tying you back. And it's also a very good time for dedications and initiations. Doing a dedication to or a rededication to your own path, to the craft, to a specific god or goddess is just so fantastic at the February full moon. Doesn't mean you can't do it any other time, but I'm just sharing you when the energies would be most aligned with certain themes. Now in March, we move into the storm moon. This is at least what our tradition calls it, though some will call it the worm moon, the chaste moon. That comes with the idea of it having that purifying energy of spring, the crow moon, and the death moon. And I think that the death moon has a lot to do with it's the death of the old solar year, because this is the moon that's closest to the spring equinox when the solar year begins again. Now the energy here is very good for planning. So planning is a very good theme at the March moon. Also organizing, blessing, ventures. I think it's a great time for balancing spells as well because of its connection to that spring equinox energy. Now that brings us to the current full moon. So we're in April full moon. And just a word too, because we're very close to Easter, and Easter is connected to the first full moon. It's basically the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. So this is why Easter is this weekend connected to the full moon. So many will be startled to realize that. Now, this particular April moon is called the seed moon in many traditions. Others might call it the pink moon, or the growing moon, the awakening moon, or the wind moon, because it can be very windy in some areas at this time. Now, this energy for our current full moon is very much building. There's an openness to change. So this is a really good full moon if you want to manifest a change in your life, if you really want to accelerate some kind of a process that's going to lead to a transformation. Now, planting is a very good theme at the April full moon, and this can be figurative or this can be literal, and it can be both, in fact. So it's very good to bless and plant seeds and put your intentions into them at the April full moon. This is also a good time for blessing new projects, for starting new projects, for asking the universe for guidance on these new projects, and also good for spells for motivation. So to get you kind of aligned to that energy as it's swinging up, to get you motivated to be able to do what you need to do to bring your desires out into the universe. And also a good moon for productivity. So now again, I will share at the end some specific things that you could do at any moon, but this is just an idea of a theme for this April moon. Okay, now we move into May. That'll be next month's moon. This is the flower moon. Now, some people call it the hare moon, the milk moon, the bright moon, or even the grass moon, because this would be the time that the grass is really growing and very green. The energy here is really stepping into its full creative power. So this moon that we're in right now in April, there's a lot of energy here, but it's just amplifying as we move closer and closer to June, where that June moon is going to hit that peak energy. Now, the fertility is a very good theme here. Creativity is also a good one because the full moon has at its full creative power, moving towards that. And that theme of fertility doesn't have to just be physical fertility of the body. It can be fertility of anything, ideas, or new projects, enlightenment, things like that. Just wherever in your life you want to feel fertile. Now, the May full moon is also very good for fairy magic because of the thinning of the veils. So we have thinning of the veils as we get closer to Samhain, but we also have it on the opposite side at Beltane. And this will be, that May moon would be the moon that's closest to Beltane in most cases. So spells at the May full moon are very good for deepening your intuition. There's a strong connection to fire magic too. So any spells that involve fire or candles, very good at the May full moon. Now in June, we move to the strawberry moon. The strawberry moon can also be called the honey moon or the mead moon, which I really like, or the planting moon. Now here, the energy is strong, but it's also quite restful. So at that time, you hit the peak of that full moon in May, but what you'll notice is that there is a restful energy as you move into the summer. So I actually recommend that people try to bring some playfulness into their summer moon rituals. So especially the June and the July rituals or full moon rituals, because there is just this idea of the veils being thinner, the fairies are out and about. It's no coincidence that Shakespeare wrote Midsummer Night's Dream set at that time when the fairies were out and playing all their tricks and casting spells and potions and different things, because there's a lot of fun and merriment when we get into that June moon energy. Love is also a very good theme, so great time for love spells, for attracting partners, but also love spells for yourself. So self-love spells, very good here. In the July moon, it has a similar energy to the June moon. We often call this the blessing moon, though other people call it the hay moon, the summer moon, or the buck moon. You'll hear that a lot. The energy here, again, like the June moon, it's relaxed. It's actually more relaxed than the June moon is. So relaxation is a main theme here. I think it's a really good time to do a blessing circle, to just either you by yourself or with other people, just send out blessings to people who need them. And I think it's also a really good time to strengthen friendships. So spells that strengthen friendships or attract new friends to you, very good at the July full moon. Now, the August full moon is the corn moon, also called the lightning moon or the sturgeon moon or the wort moon. That's spelled WYRT. And that's a connection to a tree, I believe. Now, the energy here is moving into the beginning of the harvest. So, this energy at the August new full moon is going to feel different than, for example, the one that we're in right now when we're just beginning the planting season. So, in the August full moon, you may want to celebrate the things that have manifested since the spring. So, all those things that we're setting right now, they will kind of be reaching their 6-month peak when we get to August and September. Now, the prosperity is a very good theme for the August full moon. Money spells, abundance spells, again, doesn't mean you can't do them whenever you want, but if you really want to amplify the energy, August full moon is a great time for that. Blessing the first crops from the garden is also a really good idea. And our particular coven, we tend to make witches' ladders. This full moon in August will often fall very close to Lunaza. And so making witches' ladders to draw in prosperity is a great idea. So this is just where you braid together 3 ribbons or cords or pieces of string, and you basically braid your intention into it. And you could do it for anything, but it's very fitting for prosperity magic in a lot of ways. Now, the September full moon we call the harvest moon. You see that pretty much universally. A lot of people will call that one the harvest moon, though sometimes people will call it the October, the harvest moon. Other names for the September full moon are the barley moon or the corn moon. The energy here is more balanced because of its connection to the vernal or the fall equinox. And I like the theme of gratitude for the September full moon. A lot of people celebrate the witch's Thanksgiving sometime in September, often close to Mabon. So there's going to be a connection to Mabon as well here. It's a great time to give extra thanks to patron deities too. So if you have a particular patron deity, you're probably always offerings to them, but you could do something extra special in September, at the September full moon. Now, the October full moon is often called the blood moon. This moon tends to be at its closest point to the Earth at that time, I believe. So it appears much bigger in the sky than usual and will often take on a red tinge, which is why it's called the blood moon. And that's not to be confused with the lunar eclipses, where the moon will appear red and therefore is often called the blood moon as well. So this is just the name of the October moon because of the appearance of it in the sky. Other people may call this the hunter's moon, or the harvest moon is also very popular. The energy here is beginning to release. So just like those energies of the January and the February full moon, where I said the energy wasn't really quite as potent yet, here we've kind of passed the potency and now we're moving down into the waning half of the year. So that energy starts to feel more like letting go, and it takes on more of a feel of a dark moon. The veils are thinning as we approach Samhain at that point. So rituals to help those who have crossed over are very good at around the October full moon. And surrender is a very good theme as well. So really surrendering into the flow of the universe, not trying to fight against it. It can be really good here. And it's a good time for ancestral work, shadow work. It's always a good time for shadow work, but it's especially aligned in those moons that are further into the fall and the winter. And also a good time for honoring the dead. Now, the November moon also carries a similar theme. Our tradition doesn't normally give this a name, but many call it the mourning moon. And this is mourning like you're in mourning for the loss of someone or something. So mourning. Others might call this the dark moon. Again, not to be confused with the dark moon that happens every cycle, the day before the new moon. It might also be called the beaver moon, the ivy moon, and in some places, the snow moon, because there are places that it gets that cold that they are already covered in snow by November. The energy here is taking root, it's settling in. Winter's coming at that point of the year, and we know it. So, transformation is a very big theme at the November moon. So, letting go of any energy that's more negative, that's something that you don't want to carry into the rest of the winter with you. And also, a very good time to do spells to break bad habits, just very aligned with that November full moon energy. And then that brings us finally to the December full moon, which is we call the oak moon. It can also be called the long moon. That has to do, sorry, actually should be called the long night moon. That has to do with its connection to the winter solstice, which is the longest night of the year. And then this one is also sometimes called the cold moon, the elder moon, or the wolf moon. And that brings us all the way back to January, where some people call that one the wolf moon. So you'll see these different variations. It's really, don't let it get you tripped up or confused. It's just, these are just names, and just pick one that resonates the most with you. Now, the energy of that December full moon is, I like the idea of great lightness in the midst of all the darkness of the winter. So rebirth is a very good theme here. Is as far as the myth of the wheel of the year, the goddess is giving birth to the god who will become her consort again at Beltane. So there's a birth energy here. And it's a good time for forging the beginning of any of that inner work that you would be doing in the winter. So that's a good thing to set up or kind of consider at that time. And it's also a very good time for wishes for the coming year. So some people actually talk about doing like wish magic being very powerful at the December full moon. And then finally, I just wanted to mention the blue moon because this has to do with the fact that there are 13 moon cycles that fit within a solar year, and we only have 12 months in our calendar. So what that means is that there will be a blue moon every single year. So what's interesting is the definition of the blue moon is the second full moon within a calendar month. So we would have to have one within a year usually. And so what that means is these are not as rare as the phrase once in a blue moon suggests. But nevertheless, they are considered especially potent. The energy of them is considered especially potent. So it's very good energy for doing your biggest workings. So you got a really big one that you want to add extra energy to. That blue moon, find that one time of the year where there's going to be 2 in 1 month, and do your working on that second full moon of the month. So before I go and look at the comments and answer some questions, I just wanted to mention the word esbat, and then I am going to give you some ideas of things that you could do for the full moon. So the word esbat is a word that we often use, our coven uses it, to refer to a moon-related ceremony or ritual of some kind. Typically, these fall on a full moon, but you could do an esbat on a new moon. We will call that a new moon esbat if we were to do a ritual on the new moon as well. Now, during that time, a priestess or a priest, usually a priestess because of the energy being feminine at that time, may draw down the moon into herself. So what this means is drawing down the energy of the moon and the moon goddess into herself in order to gain insight and wisdom. If you've ever seen this done, it's very interesting. I myself have done this before, and it really does feel different as you're talking. There's a different energy within you. It's not just you there alone. So many people will use the poem by Doreen Valiente. It's called The Charge of the Goddess, and you may be familiar with it. It starts out, whenever you have need of anything once a month, and when the moon is full, you shall assemble in some secret space and adore the spirit of me, who is queen of all the wise. You shall be free from slavery, and as a sign that you be free, you shall be naked in your rights. Sing, dance, make music, and love all in my presence. So the poem goes on, and so what many people will do is they will draw down the moon, and then they'll recite this poem. So you can go look it up. It's a very beautiful, beautiful poem. The a full moon esbat is also a very good time for celebrations. So these ideas I'm talking about right now are generally going to involve multiple people, so not just a solitary ritual. And then I'm going to talk about ideas for solitaries as well. But this is a good time for dedications or initiations into a group. A good time for elevations. So people who run a coven will often elevate people to the next level at a full moon, at an esbat. Also a good time for hand fastings and for womanings, which is where a girl reaches her first period. So celebrating of that. Now, here are some full moon magic ideas that anybody can do. So the first one is manifestation of the goals of your goals. So I talked about that throughout. The full moon is very much about drawing in, as opposed to the dark moon, which is very much about letting go. So as we went through those different themes of the full moons, you probably noticed that some of them are more aligned to that energy of drawing in than others, but each full moon still carries with it that manifestation energy. So any full moon, you can do manifestation magic. Now, this can be as simple as getting a candle, carving your intentions into it, sending your intentions into the candle, and then burning it. You can burn it over the course of just the full moon night, or you can burn it over the course of a week or 2 weeks, or a full cycle, a full lunar cycle if you want. This is just a simple idea for a manifestation spell. But for example, our full moon right now, this April one, very good for planting seeds. So similar idea, putting your intentions into the seeds. You could even choose seeds that are aligned, that will produce plants that are aligned with the energy that you're searching for. So for example, basil is very good for money. So if you're trying to draw in money, planting basil seeds perhaps. And you can charge the seeds, send your intention into it, and then as you care and tend to them and the plant begins to grow, your intention, that energy is continuing to grow as well. So here's a couple of ideas of things that you could do, manifestation at the full moon. I think sigil magic is also a very good way to do manifestation. If you've never done sigil magic before, I'll probably actually include it in a future video, but it's very easy. You will take a word for your intention. You usually want to have it be in the present tense. So for example, I am abundant might be your phrase. And then what you do is you cross out all of the vowels and you cross out any letters that are repeated. And what that will do is it'll leave you with generally like 4, 5, 6 letters or so. And then you make some kind of a symbol out of those letters. And you can even break the letters apart. So for example, a P, which has a straight line and then a curve, you can take those apart and then make it into a symbol. And then from there, many people will they'll draw that on a piece of paper, they'll charge that and they burn it on the full moon, and then that's a way to release that energy, and it's a very good form of manifestation magic. But you could also create sigils that are meant to be not destroyed. That's called a destructible sigil. You can do sigils that are going to be temporary or permanent. So sometimes people will do that same process. They'll make that symbol, and then perhaps they want to protect the home that they are going to live in for some time, and you can put that under a bed, the mattress of a bed, behind a painting, things like that. So those sigils are just meant to stay and keep the house protected. You can also do temporary ones where you draw them on your body, perhaps, and then you will wash them off later. But same process, you would make the sigil the same way. But very good kind of magic at the full moon. Other work that you can do during the full moon is healing energy work. I also think that the full moon is a fantastic time to do energy work, to break up any stuck and stagnant energy that's in your body right now. Because as you move into the waning half of the cycle, which is coming tomorrow, you will begin to go more into that releasing energy. You're going to be more receptive to working with your shadow work and your more internal work. And the trouble is that if we move into that part of the cycle and we're bringing with us a bunch of stuck and stagnant energy that we didn't let go of, then when we get into the space where we're ready to do our internal work, we are going to have some blockages, more than we probably want. So I think the full moon is like a fantastic time to do some kind of movement work. So, for example, moon salutations, if you've never seen one, I recommend just Googling it. There's a couple different variations of it, and it's similar to a sun salutation, but it is I consider the movements to be much bigger and wider. So it has like definitely has like a lunar energy to it. So that can be really great to do if you do yoga, if you like movement work like that. But other things you can do is breath work, like activating breath work that will get some of your energy moving through the body. Kundalini energy exercises, again, get energy shaken up. And so what you can do is you basically are using that amplified energy of the full moon to just kind of knock that energy out of your body as well. So really good time for that. Divination and prophecy, there's such, because of that heightened energy of the full moon, great time for divination or of any form, doesn't have to be tarot or oracle cards, crystal balls, candle gazing is more meditative, but sometimes people actually use the candle gazing as a form of divination. Runes, pendulums, anything you're doing. Doing some automatic writing at the full moon is a good idea. Could be very good too. Spells of any kind can be done here, but aligned with the energy of this moon is the ideas of passion, creativity, love, strength. So, kind of creating themes around those ideas when you're creating your spells. It's a good time for psychic work as well because that lunar energy is so connected to water energy. It's a good time for third eye work, a good time for dream work. Many people will notice that their dreams are very heightened, amplified at this time. Rituals at the ocean or other water sources are very good at the full moon. And this can actually be a ritual bath or a ritual shower if you don't live somewhere near a running water source or can't get to it, to a natural running water source. Um, it's also a good time to cleanse or charge your tools, and many people like to charge their crystals at this time. I noticed that someone had posted, I just briefly saw it in the Body Mind Witchcraft group, was asking about charging a crystal ball. It's great to charge a crystal ball at this time, and she was asking how to do it. So this is the same way that you would charge your crystals. You're just going to place them somewhere outside or in a windowsill where the moon's energy, the light can fall on the crystals or the crystal ball. And then the thing I just recommend is to make sure that you remove all of that before the sun comes up. Otherwise, you're going to have some sun energy in there as well. But because you're trying to get that lunar energy in. And this is also a good time for making moon water. So the same idea is you will take the water, put it in a jar or a bowl, place it out somewhere in the moon. You can do it outside in the moon's light, or you can do it on the windowsill, again, like the crystals. And again, take it away before the sun comes up, because you don't want moon and solar water probably. You're trying to get full moon water. And then you bottle it up and you can save it for later. And you can add it to spells perhaps later in the waning half, spells that are more like manifestation energy. They need that oomph of the full moon. You can sprinkle some drops of the moon water, your full moon water, on your spell work or whatever you're doing, and that will kind of add in that extra energy. Now, goddesses, I'm going to stick to goddesses mostly here as suggestions, mainly because of the lunar energy being more feminine. So if you work with goddesses and deity in your practice, here are some ideas. Artemis and Diana, those two are goddesses of the hunt and goddesses of the moon. Luna, Selene. Chandra is a Hindu goddess of the moon, and in fact, I was talking about the moon salutations before. Those are usually called Chandra Namaskar, which means the salutation to Chandra, the moon. Ixchel, Isis is very good at the full, a good goddess to call in at the full moon. Bast, she's very good as well. I mentioned performing the moon salutations, and it's always nice to meditate as well during the full moon. Now, you can create a simple ritual. People ask me all the time about rituals that they can do at the full moon, like how to do them. And there isn't a right or wrong to this at all. So I hope that some of the ideas I gave gives you some kind of inspiration of things that you want to do. But you don't have to make this really big and complicated It can be very, very simple. It can be as simple as just lighting a candle, carving into it your intention, and then burning it. I suggest pick one or two of the things that I just mentioned and see if you can make a small ritual out of that. So just to end here before I go answer questions, I just wanted to share a little bit with you about what I do at the full moon. So for many years, I led full moon esbats for our coven, and when the pandemic began, we went online, and just to kind of help people out, it's like a lot to have a ton of online rituals all the time. Like we were always doing our sabbats, and we had meetings and things. I personally just need a little bit of space, and people were isolating anyway. So I started doing my full moon rituals by myself at the beach. And so um, my ritual is very, very simple. I cast a circle, and then I call the quarters. And you don't need to necessarily do that. And if you do want to cast a circle, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It can simply be just imagine white light surrounding you, casting the circle, and even calling in the quarters can just be as simple as acknowledging the energy at the different quarters that represent the different elements. Um, Within the center of my circle, it generally is the same every time. I charge my crystals. I bring my favorite ones, the ones that I'm working with. I place them on some velvet on the beach, and I let those charge while I'm doing my ritual. And then I will usually have some kind of a spell in the middle. So many of you may know that I've been working on fertility in my own life as an intention. And so usually what I do is I take 2 eggs, and I charge them with my intention, and then I throw them into the ocean. And then I also I usually call my patron deities are Ganesha and Lakshmi. And so I call them, and then I leave some offerings for them as well at the beach. So that's about the gist of my ritual. And then when I come home, I might do some divination or something. But it's very, very simple. I might change it up here and there. But I find just simply being at the beach underneath the full moon, that in and of itself, just bathing in that moonlight, is a ritual in and of itself. So again, I bring this up because you don't need to make a ritual to be really complicated, especially if you're first starting out. Just pick something simple and just do it every full moon. Do something every full moon, and you get in the groove of that energy. And then to me, that's really what the beginning of lunar living is just really living within the cycles of the lunar cycle with the moon. So I just wanted to see if we've got any questions here. I see there's a lot of people here tonight. Hey guys. Oh right, merry meet everybody. Danielle is talking about the Fae here. She said the Fae have intrigued you. Pretty sure they're trying to connect with you, and you don't know enough about them. So this does not surprise me at all if they're trying to connect you, especially right now in our house. We always laugh. This is like fairy season is beginning. So it's not unusual to see the cats freaking out. A couple of mine are very friendly with the fairies. So that's usually my first sign that it's happening. But the veils start to thin here, and the Fae may want to work with you. So that in and of itself is a whole class, but what I would recommend is just do a little bit of research about it. And Danielle, you're actually in our membership, and Beth is going to come, and she's going to do a whole class on fairy magic very soon for the membership, I think like next month. So you'll learn a ton from her. She's been doing fairy magic for a while. Me personally, I'm a little cautious with the fairies because their magic is very unusual at times, and it can go in strange directions. So I just always say just use a little caution, but they really love offerings. Beth always says to make fairy jars, which she says contains like shiny trinkets and different things, and she'll place them at places in her house. It keeps them happy. And what I always say, and she's always said too, is to watch out for things that you leave places. So for example, like keys, they like shiny things. And so if you don't put your keys in the same place every time, what we've noticed is that the keys go missing in fairy season. And of course they'll turn up, but to try to avoid that, I'm very careful to make sure that I know where I put the keys or something that I like habitually use. I want to make sure I know where I put that just to avoid losing it during fairy season. Um, so let's see here. Misty said that once when she was younger, she was in bed, not asleep, and noticed a bunch of different colored lights like fireflies flying around the bedroom. Some were blue, red, pink, white, etc. And she said, I've only seen it that once. Does it sound like the fae or elemental spirits? Just curious. Yeah, you know, it's hard to say. The fact that you are seeing the colored lights, it could be the fae. It could also be elementals. Sometimes the sylphs look like lights, especially at night. But I could very well be. It could very, very well be the fae. You know, many people say that as children, most of us can see them, and that we are trained and indoctrinated into this world where nobody can see them anymore, and that's how we kind of lose our ability. So you probably will like Beth's class too, because she is going to talk all about fairy magic and the fae and how to kind of draw them in. So maybe you'll learn something more to draw that energy back in, like you said. Tanessa said moon water time. Yep, tonight it's time for that. I'm going to put mine out too. Okay. And then you were saying make them in different bottles for all 13 moons. So that is, you could absolutely do that. So you can make just full moon water at any time. But if you wanted to make one for each of those 13 moons, so you would have like, you know, the January moon, the February moon, you could label it with the intention or a theme for that moon as well. And you can make one for the blue moon too. That's a cool idea. And then Kristen said someone she's met puts out a 24 pack of water to charge it, which is pretty cool because then they're probably drinking that water all month and they've had that charged with the full moon energy. That's a pretty neat idea. And then Danielle was saying some bad storms tonight. Oh, yeah. That's pretty common. That some people actually call the April moon the storm moon. So yeah, that makes that, and that's why, because there's a lot of storms at this time. And Danielle said the fae scare her a bit. Yeah, that's why I just say a little caution with the fae. That's all. There's nothing really to be scared about, but just some caution. You know, the stories don't eat anything that the fae offer you if you slip through. You know, places where they are. But we have some that live in the front yard in a tree that actually has a. I was so happy when I saw this when we moved in here. It has a built-in little fairy door already in it, and that's a good sign that that's a place where they are. And so I honestly I leave them offerings. You know, it's weird is they want sand. When I go to the beach, they want me to bring back a little bit of sand. So I don't know why, but I do it for them anyway. And just, you know, if you find them around, I just suggest asking them what would make them happy and then just leaving little offerings to them. And they're, you know, they're fun, but they can be a little mischievous. And that's what leads people to be a little cautious of them. Oh, Autumn's here. Hi, Autumn. She said you can use the storm energy for an extra oomph. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Drawing in some of that energy and then just allowing it to, you know, accelerate your own magic and your spell work. Oh, Tanessa says she has a patch of fairy grass in the yard. Yeah, and that's always a good indication that they're around. Oh, leaving apples. Danielle said leaving apples for the yeah. You know what I also do too is I leave. After every ritual, so if you do a ritual and you leave any offerings for the god or the goddess, you don't generally want to just throw those out, dispose of them in like a general way. Like you don't want to put it in your garbage can. So I always leave them outside. We say for the nature spirits or the fae, but I've noticed too with apples or fruit, like if we've given an offering, those are always gone too. And so like people could say, they could rationalize it and say it was just the animals that came and got it. Who cares, right? But I agree with you, Danielle. I think that it's the fae too. So I'm going to see if there's any other questions here for me. But and let's just make sure I didn't miss anything before I go. I thought I saw someone said their emotions were kind of high. That is something too that I didn't really talk about, but be gentle with yourself. If you notice that you get overly emotional or more emotional at the full moon, just be more gentle with yourself. That's why paying attention to your own energy in the lunar cycles it can be so illuminating, because it just gives you an idea of what to expect if your energy's high, if it's low, if you're more emotional. I find that I can't really sleep around the full moon. So just last night, I found that I was up later than usual, and I was starting to get annoyed at myself. And then I realized, well, it's the full moon tomorrow, so it makes sense. And then it just kind of ease up a little on my annoyance, because it's just the way that my body reacts to this energy. So always kind of figuring that out for yourself is important. Oh, and Autumn is a nurse, and she said that she is looking forward to the full moon craziness at the ER. Yes, and when I was in grad school, I took a lot of classes in the nursing school, and one of the head nurse, she's always talking about the admissions at the ER the night of the full moon was just craziness. So anybody who claims that they're like the full moon does not affect us, just a BS, because just look, the nurses will tell you and the doctors will tell you it gets crazy at the ER on the full moon. Yeah, Tanessa said she can't sleep either. I've just realized I don't sleep on the full moon. It's okay. I just have to. But what I do find is I even when I don't sleep very much, I don't feel as tired as perhaps a different part of the cycle if I weren't sleeping, because that activated energy. All right, well, I am going to sign off for tonight, and I hope that you guys have a fantastic full moon. I'm off to do my own ritual now, so I hope that you enjoyed this and it gave you some ideas for how to celebrate. And if you have any things that you're doing for the full moon, definitely share them in the chat too. I'm going to go back through and I'll see if I missed any comments or questions. You can also leave questions there as well, and I'll answer them later. All right, well, until next time. Blessed be and happy full moon.